Hello, and welcome to the beginning of Holy Week, Passion Sunday. This week, our gospel tells the story of Christ's passion. And there's so many different things that could be discussed, but today I'm going to focus on 3 tidbits from this beautiful gospel reading. The first is Simon of Cyrene, who carries the cross of Christ. It is hard to imagine, but Christ, after his scourging, is so physically weak that he is unable to carry his own cross. And therefore the soldiers put upon Simon to carry the crossbar that would be a part of the crucifix. Simon chooses to follow behind Christ as he carries this crossbeam. And it says so much about what happens in Simon's life. We know from Acts that Simon becomes a follower of Christ, a Christian, and so do his children, Rufus and Alexander. And this transformed his life, and it says something to us about the crosses in our own life and how they can transform us. When we choose to carry a cross and know that God is working through it, then we come to allow God to work through us and open our hearts so that we can love more like Christ does. What does that mean? It means believing and holding on to things like Romans 8, where it says all things work for good for those who love God. And like Jeremiah 29, verse 11, that says, I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you. So as we walk through the difficult times, we walk in the footsteps of Christ. And in doing so, we are open to how God is working through us, even in the most difficult moments of our life. When we do that, what happens to our heart is it's transformed. And we come to love more like God loves, more like Jesus did on the cross, where what does he say to the very people who are persecuting him? Forgive them, Lord, for they know not what they do. And so we too can love with the compassionate love of Christ when we unite our suffering to Christ on the cross. The second thing I'd like to bring to your attention is our psalm, Psalm 22. We read that in the Mass or have it sung during Mass, and then we read the Gospel and we see that there are many similarities, including the opening phrase, my God, why have you abandoned me? The fact that his clothing is divided and his garments are cast lot for. The fact that his hands and feet are pierced. Those things are all mentioned in Psalm 22. And so it may just make sense that it flows. However, what's really important to remember is that Psalm 22 was written in about 600 BC by King David. And he was prophesying, basically, about what was going to happen to the coming Messiah. So when Jesus on the cross in the Gospel of Mark and in the Gospel of Matthew says, my God, why have you abandoned me? He's referencing Psalm 22. He's telling the listener to go back and read Psalm 22. So I encourage you to do that. Go back and read Psalm 22 and see what its message says. Jesus didn't think God abandoned him. He knows it's the fulfillment of Psalm 22 and that in the end, it will be used and worked to glorify God the Father. The third thing I'd like to bring to your attention is the veil. The veil in the sanctuary is torn when Jesus dies. Why is this and what does it mean? Well, we know from the Old Testament that if a person actually saw God face to face, it would be too much and he would die. And yet when the veil is torn, what it is saying is not only can you see God face to face now, you have the opportunity to spend eternity with God. Those barriers that existed between mankind and God are completely torn and destroyed because the glory of God has entered into this moment. Jesus, through his sacrifice and his humble submission to the Father's will, has allowed us to spend eternity with God. So this Holy Week, I call you to reflect on Psalm 22, on taking up our own crosses and following in Jesus' footsteps like Simon did, and remembering that we have the opportunity to spend eternity with God when we live according to his word and love him. Have a blessed Holy Week. Thank you.